Dave Barlow here with Sell for 1%. Got the gang here this morning, and we are talking interest rates with our good friend from Equitable Mortgage, Rich
Cereone.
And that's where they're going to dub in the correct pronunciation, Rich.
Cereone.
Yeah. I've screwed this up so many times that I was told, let me do it. And so Jesse Ray, our editor, is going to put in the correct pronunciation. So hopefully it comes out right. So the Feds yesterday had their big meetup, and Chairman Powell, very powerful name, Chairman Powell, gave his explanation of what happened and why they did what they did. But we need a common man's perspective. Rich, what happened?
Well, what essentially happened is that they raised rates 0.25%. They raised the Fed fund rate again 0.25%. And as we've said in prior conversations, that is not the mortgage rate. That's just the federal funds rate, bank-to-bank lending that has been raised. Now, the economists all expected them to raise 0.25%. And a lot of them thought they should not raise 0.25%, but still in all, they expected them to do it, even though they felt they shouldn't do it. So as we've said in prior conversations, when they do what's expected, then that's usually positive news to the mortgage market. And so we saw interest rates for mortgages rally yesterday after the announcement of the raise of 0.25%. Now, I say that, but everybody shouldn't rush out thinking they're going to get a better rate, because what was happening prior to the announcement late Tuesday and early Wednesday was the banks across the country were not sure what the Fed was going to do. This was the most uncertain meeting they've had in a long time. And because of that, they just hedged their bet, and the rates were over 7% yesterday morning. So now that they did what was expected, and the telegraphed message is that they're sort of coming to the end of the tightening cycle. They may be at the end. They may have another 0.25% in them in the future meeting. So the forward-looking guidance now is more towards stopping the raising of interest rates and loosening the interest rate market going forward at some point. So the anticipation of that is helping mortgage rates right now. So we're in the 6.7, 6.8 range right now, whereas we were over 7% yesterday morning, again, because they were hedging the possibility of the Fed doing just about anything yesterday afternoon.
Okay. And so other factors in there, a couple banks have defaulted. We have about what they expected for unemployment rate, I think was released a little earlier this morning. What other things are going into the ingredients of interest rates?
Well, they're still looking at inflation. Inflation is still a concern. But one of the things that Powell said was that there's a possibility that tightening the credit standards, which is organically happening because of the bank shakeups that we're seeing. Banks are getting tighter with their lending standards. So the feeling is that the tighter lending standards may also slow the economy down. If you can't get that car loan because the lending standards are higher, or if you can't get that commercial loan to build a commercial building to do business. So in general, if you remember that the regional banks are the ones that lend the business capital typically to any given area. So with the tightening standards that they're expected to enact, that's going to slow the economy down as well. And that's something the Fed is counting on to do some of the work for them, so they don't have to continue to raise rates.
And so ultimately, they want the economy to slow, so that inflation will slow. Is that
correct?
Kind of simplified.
Yes, that is correct. They don't want the economy to grind to a halt. They're hoping for a soft landing, as they say. Uh, but past experiences have said these things usually lead to a recession, and then we have to start the process all over again of lowering rates, and then at some point it becomes too low and the economy gets too hot, and you start to raise rates. So it's a never-ending cycle to some extent.
Right. So your experience, Rich, 25 plus years in the business, when we in these recessionary periods, what do you typically see happen with interest rates?
At some point, I think we'll start to see the rates go down. Again, we're not working in a bubble, though. There's a lot of exterior factors. We have a lot of macro economic and political factors at play right now. So anything could happen, but typically recessionary times lead to, well, there's a recession, so now we need to get the economy moving again. So the Fed starts to talk about lowering rates at some point, and then they start to actually lower, and they start to give guidance that they're going to continue to lower. And when they do that, mortgage rates tend to slip down. So if we're acting in a bubble, we feel like interest rates for mortgages will modulate and come down as we move forward into late 2023 and 2024. That's the hope. But again, there's a lot of exterior factors that could change that.
And every day something else is impacting the overall economy, such as SVB Bank going under. That impacts the market. But I think with the bank failures, it's been a little bit of a wake-up call maybe for the Fed not to raise interest rates as quickly as they were, because it's putting pressure, as you mentioned, on these regional banks to be able to hold cash reserves in order to,
right.
If there is a bank run, then they have the money available. And so all these factors go into the melting pot. And our hope is that the Fed and their balancing act at the circus, which is basically what it is, a circus, and they're up on the high wire, trying to balance the economy. I mean, my personal opinion is that they waited way too late to start raising the Fed rate to slow the economy. Now, are they smart enough to slow raising rates so that they don't force it into a recession? And so that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, well, we've had 9 straight rate increases, and some of them being 1/2 and 3/4. So,
right.
They've raised very, very aggressively. So we hope that they will at least pause and see what happens at this point.
And Jay, you had
one thing I want to mention, Dave. Can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
About the regional banks and the credit tightening that we're seeing. People that I work with constantly will bemoan the fact of how hard it is to get a loan. It's so difficult, that Rich is asking for this and that, and there's all these things that are needed in order to get approval for a loan. So the credit tightening has happened, and there's a reason that it's so hard. It's by design to some extent with these banks. They are looking to weed out the people that don't qualify. And the old adage that you lend money to people that don't need it is, if you've heard that before, Dave, I'm sure. And that's kind of what's happening right now. Is the people that really need the loan maybe can't qualify, and that is going to slow the economy down. But we have seen the regional banks who do most of the portfolio lending that we have, the lending for the business loans or for the LLCs and the apartment complexes and things like that. Those are not Fannie and Freddie loans. Those are regional bank loans, and we've seen those tighten quite a bit in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So we are seeing a tougher market to get a mortgage right now. No question about it.
Jay, you had a comment, but I think your microphone is on mute or something maybe there. We see your mouth moving. Oh boy. Nothing there. It's actually kind of refreshing. Oh, why would he say that? All right, guys. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I had a quick question for Rich, because I'm curious, because I'm sure this is a question that buyers have, and a definitive answer would be nice from somebody who does this on a daily basis. Rich, with the interest rates being so volatile, I know late last week, early last week, they were down, and then like you said, yesterday they were up, and now they're down again. You know, buyers going in contract on a property. At what point is that rate locked in? And if the day changes and the rate drops 0.5%, is there anything that the buyer can do to recoup that, or are they kind of locked in and stuck where they're at?
Well, that's a two-pronged answer. When you lock, it's like buying a stock to some extent. Like, let's say you call your broker today and you say, I want to buy some Microsoft. And, you buy it at a certain level, and then Microsoft drops tomorrow. You can't call him back and say, you know what, forget that transaction. I want to buy it now at this lower price. So, to some extent, you are locked when you're locked. Now, that being said, we can't honor minor fluctuations. So, like, it went up an eighth, it went up, it went down an eighth. Once you're locked, the nice thing is it never can go up. But if it goes down just a little bit, an eighth or 1/4%, we can't honor those little fluctuations, and that's what I would tell a client. However, if we have a major move in interest rates, like for instance when COVID lockdowns happened and overnight rates dropped 1/2 to 3/4 of a point, that's a reasonable situation where you have to help your client and step in and negotiate that with the secondary market, because ultimately it's not locked with us, it's locked with the secondary market. So we have to go to them and say, okay, we had Mike here, we had him locked, but good grief, I mean, rates dropped 0.75% overnight. He's gonna turn around and walk away if we don't do something, and we can renegotiate something like that. But it has to be a major move. It can't be the daily 1/8, 1/4, up, down. As we've seen in our discussions, those happen all the time. And at some point, you just got to make a decision as a client that I want to lock this rate in now, and I'll live with it, barring any major economic shifts.
Awesome. Yeah, that was, I had a couple clients ask that question too. So good information for me and anybody who's watching here, that if it does drop quite a bit, you can sick your lender on the secondary market to try to get you a better rate.
Yeah. That, I mean, it's something that can be discussed. I mean, because obviously, we're in the business to take care of people, and certainly none of us would want, to be closing on a rate that was almost a point lower or higher rather than what the rate actually is. So, we'll do our best to help in a situation like that, but not minor changes. We can't do that.
Got it. Appreciate it, Rich. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for your time, Rich. As always, your contact information's here on the screen. If you have any questions for financing of your new home, whether it's a new build or you're buying a pre-owned property, or Rich mentioned also that they do commercial as well, give Rich a call. He'd be happy to talk with you. Even though Rich is on vacation and overlooking the ocean, he's still taking phone calls. And more importantly, he's still talking to us. So that's
always working.
Yes. Yeah, that's not really on vacation, but your wife is. All right, Rich. Thank you, sir.
Exactly. Thank you, guys.